I figured it out. I fixed the Airbnb algorithm bug that's causing everybody's calendars to be empty. I just set up 4 new properties and they all got booked almost immediately after the 24-hour mark, which is their held for review window for some hosts like me, I guess. I'm on probation, maybe. But here's the thing. It was the algorithm, but it's not a bug, and I need you to hear me out. I'm going to talk to you about why Airbnb made some very clear, distinct changes that are causing your calendars to be empty, and they're doing it on purpose. Let's go. Hey guys, yeah, I know it's a serious accusation, but I am pretty confident based on my findings that Airbnb is intentionally crushing people's listings, but there's a way through it. First, I want to let you know that I will be doing a full webinar on this. If you want to get your listings back appropriately on the algorithm and get them to perform, Thursday, 6 p.m., I'll be doing a webinar. There'll be a link in my bio. No, it's not free. I'm doing less free stuff now, but I'm gonna give you what I can here, but it's $80. It's an $80 webinar, and I'm gonna give you guys some really heavy duty stuff that it took me weeks to figure out and cost me thousands and tens of thousands of dollars to split test. But I'm gonna teach you guys. With that said, let's get into what Airbnb's up to. Airbnb's algorithm is still an interest algorithm, but they're trying to adopt more satisfaction metrics, like I said before. Now, I said that they were not prepared for how slow this slow season was going to be, but actually that is the opposite of what's happened. I believe Airbnb's algorithm has contingencies in there for the supply and demand curve. Airbnb has a minimum level of quality that they want to provide in all scenarios, and the more demand starts to rise compared to supply, the more loose they will be with what listings they will allow to show up in search. But if there's very little demand and a lot of supply, what gets populated in search becomes much more particular. The standards at which your listing has to perform increases in order for you to stay on the algorithm. One thing that I noticed with a couple of my properties, the ones that started non-performing, that downward spiral I mentioned in a previous video, is actually because of a few things. But one of the grains of rice that tip the scale is we've got 40 doors that are nearly the same. Like say 5 or 10 listings showed up in search as somebody searching the area, and to look at 1 or 2 of our properties, they start to notice that they already know what's going to be in our next 8. So they don't click on the other 8. So what happens is you have listings where people are no longer clicking on them because they already know what you've got to offer, and they know they don't want it because they already saw a couple of your other properties. So now what happens is the click-through rate on those listings starts to crash, and they stop showing those listings that were getting breezed over. I'm going to take a step back though. Airbnb actually did have a temporary bug in the system, but it's not going to fix everything. The bug was that for a couple of weeks at least, Airbnb wasn't recognizing interest metrics on some properties. When I went to search our conversion, there was a dashed line, not even a 0 or a 1. There was a dash where it said views. This means that Airbnb wasn't registering views. And when Airbnb fixed that bug, the next week when they fixed it, it would show that that listing had 250 views, and the change was 250, meaning that the 250 views it got in a week was 250 more than was registered for the weeks prior. This legitimately means Airbnb wasn't tracking interest metrics on some of their listings, or they intentionally shut off the tracking of interest metrics on some listings that they knew that they weren't going to show in search anyway because of the supply and demand curve. There still could be some intentional stuff at play with this, but for 2 solid weeks, they just were not tracking metrics on some listings where we would have 10 units in an apartment complex. 4 of them would show no metrics at all. So I split test all sorts of stuff. I split test listing completion. I split test names, length of the name. I split test whether or not we're on smart pricing or not, what our minimum prices were, whether or not we were using 20% promotional discounts, booking parameters we have like 1 night minimum stays or flexible cancellation, pet friendly. We split test everything we could under the sun. In that webinar, I'm going to show you the specific data on our findings. If there's anything I can tell you now, just go back in your listing and check every single box you could find. And in that webinar, I'm going to give you my findings on data on what things actually move the needle most on views. The one thing that I also want to tell you here is yes, it very clearly still views are what we're tracking, because Airbnb is looking at our listings like a funnel. They still want adoption. If somebody's window shopping and your listing pops up and you get a click on that listing, that is good for the algorithm because it shows that your listing is interesting. Now, you may not be available for the dates that they eventually want. That's okay. You do not need to get converted on the view. Airbnb is not tracking that. But what Airbnb is looking for are a few things. They want to see that you have views from impressions. They more specifically, I think, are tracking views from first page impressions. They are wanting to see that your calendar is filling up. They also want to see that people's reviews are high once someone stays. So in order for this to work for you big picture, you need to get views. And then by some means, either on platform, off platform, whatever, Airbnb bookings are starting to come in. They want to see the calendar filled up. And then they want people to give positive reviews after their stay. This is the most basic stuff. I'll tell you also, they are no longer nearly as egotistical about blocked calendars. They used to really punish you for a blocked calendar, but Airbnb knows that the best listings on the planet are also on VRBO and Marriott Homes and Villas and everything else. So if you do get a VRBO booking and the listing gets blocked for 5 or 6 days, Airbnb is no longer punishing you for blocking the calendar nearly as bad as they used to, because they don't want to not show the best listings. Everything that they've done right now is to tweak to put the best listings in front of people as often as possible. And you getting a VRBO booking is no longer going to be pushing you down because Airbnb doesn't want to punish their best listings. They've realized that that's a huge mistake. Hey guys, I got a little too excited and I forgot to explain one of the key elements of this contingency, that low demand where Airbnb starts dropping stuff out of search. The reason why they're doing this is they have to choose who lives and who dies in the platform. They understand that if they more evenly distributed views and more evenly distributed bookings across all worthy hosts, people who could do a good enough service, that a lot of people would leave the industry if there was legitimately just not enough business for everybody. Let's give you the math. Let's say that Airbnb could give the top 50% of hosts business, but when we give the top 50% of hosts business, 5% break even and 95% lose money. And out of the 95% that lose money, 80% of them lose enough money that they're really upset. That means that 40% of hosts will just drop off and quit. But instead of giving 50% of hosts business, they could just give like 35 or 37% of host business, and then none of those people would lose enough money that they would quit. Or maybe 25% of those people would still lose enough money that they quit. The net retention of hosts on the platform will be greater by starving a deeper bottom segment, by starving more of the bottom and funneling more bookings towards the top 10, 20, 30% of listings. That means that they have a greater chance of retaining their top 30% of listings. So yeah, if you're a middling listing, Airbnb really doesn't care about you in times of distress. They'd love to keep you in times of like over demand, when they just want every single host on the planet they can get so they can get as many bookings as they can get. There are bottlenecks like that. Like imagine the Super Bowl. They want every single listing in a city available on deck, ready to go when the Super Bowl hits. But in winter season, this is where they go, hey, wow, we could lose a lot of hosts right now. Our algorithm needs to protect our best hosts and distribute just the perfect amount. And that's why Airbnb is doing this. And that's why they're crushing your calendar, is Airbnb doesn't think that you're good enough to protect in slow season. Some of you hosts might be mad about categories, and I do need to let you know that from my findings with my students, because obviously this takes a lot of data, categories are cool, but they're not punishing you. The only way the categories really punish you is if you're a listing that doesn't fit into a category where in your geographic area, people want that category. I'm sorry, but this is how Airbnb is pushing what they think is popular in areas. So the pigeonholing people in a category search, it's just like clicking the Superhost button. We've been fine not being Superhost. We haven't had Superhost since we were like at 45 properties. We're at 150. You don't grow from 45 to 150 properties not being profitable. We've been profitable even though we haven't had Superhost. Now Airbnb is leaning a little harder on Superhost now, so c'est la vie. But you can still survive not fitting into categories because Airbnb is weighing so many different things, and you're only missing one type of search, really. And I'm gonna argue it this way. When somebody clicks on the category button, they may not have decided what city, area, part of the world they even wanna go to. They just wanna look at some castles. They wanna look at some tree houses. They wanna look at some cabins. When somebody goes and searches Winter Park, Colorado, they're gonna see all this stuff in Winter Park. They didn't think, oh, I specifically want a cabin in Winter Park. That search isn't happening as often as I think you think it is. People are just searching Winter Park, and they're going to see all these cool listings, and cabins are going to pop up anyway. So what is happening is Airbnb is trying to build this different type of brand loyalty where somebody can search for a particular type of property anywhere in the world and get the best results for a castle. And this gets people to stay on the Airbnb platform. It's just another way that they're trying to deliver an untouchable experience on Airbnb. See, like I just told you, Airbnb is no longer punishing you for getting booked on VRBO. If you're one of the best listings on the planet, they want you, they want to show you, they want to market you and collect that 14% fee. They want to do that. But Airbnb is looking for other ways to get people from VRBO, which is to create curations. So don't be mad about the categories section. It's just a play that Airbnb is making, and it'll either pan out or it won't, but you're still going to be in business. You're still going to be multi-channel. You'll have a direct booking platform. Hopefully, if you're a type of person that fits in the categories, you should be doing direct bookings anyway. So yes, if you're a host and you want to better understand the algorithm, or if you have an empty calendar and you need to get back on the algorithm's good side, then click the link in my description and sign up for my re-algorithm event. And I'm going to teach you guys everything you need to know. This is the type of nerdy stuff that you cannot pass up, because as a business owner, your competitors are going to wipe the floor with you if you stay ignorant to this type of competitive advantage, which is pleasing your travel agency website algorithms. Eventually, I'll be doing one on VRBO. I'll be teaching you guys about the VRBO algorithm once they get a little bit more elegant. They're doing some cool stuff. Stay tuned for a VRBO video very soon. Thank you for watching this video. And as always, I'll see you on the other side.